Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm a doula in Washoe County, Nevada, a Medicaid provider, a lactation educator, childbirth educator, and mom of 18. You can find me and connect on doulainreno.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell, and I'm here with Kirsten Karchmer. How are you today?
I could not be better. As I told you before, I just got back from a month in Hawaii with my best friends, and boy, it makes a big difference. I'm like, I feel so good.
I didn't
So
know you were with your
happy.
best friends. That's even better.
I was at their house. They live up in the mountains, so there's no tourists around. We almost ate exclusively either from their property or the properties around them, except for meat. And so, like, they had tangerine trees, 5 avocado trees. I mean, and she's a great cook and she wouldn't let me help at all. So for
Oh,
a whole
I
month,
love her.
I didn't have to do, and in fact, she refused. I was like, let me help. I'll feel better if I can help. She goes, nope, I don't need your help. You need to relax. That's what you're here for. You take care of so many people. We want to take care of you.
I need her address and phone number. Just so
She's amazing.
I lived in Hawaii on Oahu, and I have to tell you, it ruined me for fresh like pineapple. I can't get it at a store, and I haven't lived there for like since 1992. And
Wow.
I have like I don't like pineapple from a store because when you pick it and eat it, it's hard to go
It's,
back.
yeah. Like I hate tomatoes. I hate tomatoes. I'm Italian. I like cooked tomatoes. I like red sauce, but I don't like to just eat tomatoes. And her neighbor was just had like tomatoes just growing because everything grows enormously. And she was just taking those beautiful tomatoes, like she would pick it. We'd go next door, pick some tomatoes. She'd slice them, fry them in some olive oil and salt and pepper, and then put fried eggs on top of it. It was so flippin' good. It was so
Oh my
simple and
gosh.
so good. And I was like, I love tomatoes now. This is so weird.
You're gonna get some and try it, and it's gonna be gross, like the
No, there's
pineapple.
no way I'll buy it because it's just like the pineapple. I know that that was
You
a
can't.
completely different animal.
It
Like that.
is.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
I
this,
love this. This is a whole self-care section of our podcast.
yeah.
I would love for you to jump in and start to share your parenting journey. What you're doing is really phenomenal. So I'm very excited.
So interesting on the parenting journey because I was with MS when I was 18 years old and not even sure if I wanted to have kids because I was like, I'm pretty sick. Like, how am I
Mm.
gonna be a mom? What if I get too sick and I can't hold my baby or in a wheelchair or something like that? And then, doing my work, I, kind of went into remission, but still just scared that like getting pregnant would pull me out of remission or whatever. And I had been trying to play around with my thyroid using Chinese medicine because I had like, low thyroid function and it was working. And every time I tried to take my medicine, I was getting like acute hyperthyroidism, meaning too much medicine. I was having like red ears, migraine, palpitations, meaning too much thyroid. I was like, well, it's working. So then I just stopped taking my medicine for about 3 months. And then I gained a little bit of weight. And when we're young, we don't gain weight as easily as we do postmenopause or perimenopause. And I was like, I should probably just check my TSH to see what's going on. And it was 157. Now, your thyroid should be between 1 and 5, ideally, and even lower, like
Oh,
1 and 3 for fertility. And the doctor came in, he goes, I've got bad news. I think you have a brain tumor. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And he said, your TSH, your thyroid, is like 1,000 times too high. And I was like, oh, I think it's because, I told him the whole story. And he said, well, the only good news is that, you're not in a relationship and you don't want to have kids right now. You are totally infertile. It is not possible to get pregnant with a TSH. Yeah, you laugh, because just when you tempt fate, he's like, with a TSH of 157, he goes, it's not possible to get pregnant. And I was like, okay, I had never had unprotected sex in my whole life. Because of this whole MS thing, I was so careful. And we had unprotected sex with my boyfriend at the time. And I was like, afterwards, I was like, I just got pregnant. I know I'm pregnant. He's like, shut up. You're not pregnant. He was a reproductive acupuncturist. He's like, you're just being paranoid. And I was like, no, I swear, I think I just got pregnant. I can tell. And he's like, you can't tell when and I was like, okay, pregnant. And then it was really scary because if your thyroid levels are very low and you get pregnant, your child has pretty significant risk of like mental developmental delays, and they call it cretinism. And he ended up with like almost genius, like the other way, like too smart, it's like almost on the spectrum kind of smart, but extremely smart. He's in law school now. So just when you think like something is impossible, right? I always say nothing's impossible. I have seen the impossible happen many, 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 many times. It isn't common, but it can happen. And whenever somebody tells me that's impossible, that always makes me want to see if I can make it
Yeah.
possible. But ended up having, a really amazing birth experience. I had a great midwife who delivered both of my kids at my house. And that was one of the most powerful experiences. But I think what's might be useful for your listeners is how I decided because, I was in acupuncture college at the time and, trying to be all holistic and natural. And I had never even met a single person who had had a home birth before. That was I didn't even know that existed, right? That you would have children at home. And so I started just interviewing everybody because I'm a curious person. And I just say, tell me your birth. Anybody I knew who had a kid, whether they were 25 or 100, tell me your birth story. Tell me your birth story. Tell me your birth story. I just wanted to see, like, you know, what's it like? Well, all the people who had had hospital births, none of them, they're like, oh, it was rough. It was 30 hours, rough things happened, or it wasn't too bad. I mean, the drugs really helped, but it was this whole flavor of survival. Like I
Mhm.
survived something rough, you know, and that didn't seem very appealing to me. But then when you ask the people who had the home births, you know, even the people who had hospital births with doulas, right? They're like, I was like, tell me your birth story and like, get a cup of tea. Let me tell you about the coolest day of my whole life.
Mm.
And they would be just like savoring. They're like, then the midwife did this, and then this happened, and then God, this was so amazing, and I learned so much about it. And I was like, whoa, these people got drugs. They got all the drugs in the world. They were in a hospital where everybody was doing everything for you. Safe, you can get surgery if you need it. You need an episiotomy, whatever. These people had nothing. They were at home and they were with a midwife. And depending on the skill of the midwife, right, just in every profession, almost all of them had, even a woman who had to be transported
Mhm.
because of some kind of, and it happens, right? She still loved the experience. And I was like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense to me, but I want what they had. And I'm going to have a home birth. And on the first day, this is on the first day that I met my midwife, her name was Lori Fremgen. If you live in Central Texas, she's the bomb. She's the midwife in Central Texas that midwives have deliver her babies. And so she says to me on the first day, she goes, there's only one way to get a baby out. And I was like, what's that? And I was like, just hard work. And she goes, no, 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 surrender.
Mm.
She's like, every woman at the moment of transition will start saying, I'm dying, I'm dying, I'm dying. And she's like, and they get really scared because they think they're dying and then they stall. And that is the moment to surrender to death because you are dying. Because who you are before you deliver that baby, a pregnant lady, whatever, you're not the mother of anybody yet. You know,
Mhm.
you can still get divorced very easily. You don't have all this complication. She goes, but once that baby is brought into the world, you are the mother of forever until one of you passes. And that's scary. And in order to become the mother of, you must let the other one die. And that is scary. And so she's like, I don't think that you have a lot of experience surrendering. And I was like, yeah. And I said, do you think I'm a control freak? I said, you won't hurt my feelings. And she goes, well, I think that, anything that you can control, you might want to try to. And labor is just
Not one of
that
them.
it's not one of them, no matter how much you think you can, no matter how many classes you take, no matter whatever. She goes, it isn't. You and your baby are going to have your own journey that's already pretty much been defined by your body and your, whatever. And I was like, well, what are we going to do? And she goes, I get the feeling that you're good at being trained. And I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
as a competitive athlete. And she was okay. So for the next 9 months, you are going to go into deep training to become a black belt at surrender. So when your mother-in-law tries to dominate you, you're going to be like, absolutely. You can definitely do that. You want to come and stay for a month? Come on, because I can surrender to anything. Somebody pulls in front of you on the highway and you want to be like, and you're like, go ahead. I'm not in that big of a hurry. And you just practice and you start seeing that surrendering is a position of strength. When you get mad at somebody, when you feel dominated, you are allowing them to dominate you. And we think that surrendering is a position of weakness or inferiority, or ultimately it's like 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 Aikido and Tai Chi. Like you're actually leveraging somebody else's energy so you don't have to exert so much of your own. So she says, practice, practice. And every time I would go visit her, she would, ask me questions about how it's going. And I like to train, so I just took it on very seriously. And then she said, so at the moment when you go into transition and the first time you look at me and say, I'm dying, I'm going to look you square in the eye and say, guess what? It's time to die.
Yeah.
It's time to surrender. And let's take one deep breath and let go of all of the rest from the past and move into the next thing. And then in that moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. And she's like, we're there. That's what we talked about. Remember on the first day? We're there. She's like, just eye contact with me. Let's take a deep breath and let's surrender if you're ready. If you're not, we can wait.
Right.
She's like, but you'll suffer, you know.
Yes.
And I just took a deep breath in and then like three more pushes and then my children were born. It was so exactly as she said it. And it was really beautiful. And it made that moment that should have been so scary something incredibly beautiful, like really a rite of passage, a rite of transition. It was really so now if somebody tells me, look, you asked me, tell me your birth story, and I'm like, get a cup of tea, like let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And the second piece that was really powerful about that, that really affected me and how I work with women and how I care for them, is that, after I delivered my daughter, my second child, I was like already a little anemic, and I lost a little bit more blood and I was really lightheaded. And I was laying on my couch and my midwife was sitting between my legs, like basically picking dried blood out of my hair
Mm.
so carefully and gently. And I was like, what are you even doing? I was kind of out of it. I was like, what are you even doing? She's like, well, you have a lot of blood clotted in your hair, and I don't want it to be a big sticky mess for you. So I'm going to just take care of it right now so that you can just be ready. Later, you can take a bath, but I don't think you're ready to do that. And I was like, that's probably the single biggest act of love to just so patiently sit between my legs and clean me. You know what I mean? With so much love and attention. And I was like, oh, if every woman could experience this, it would change the planet. Even just a second of this kind of just like pure devotion to her, you know? And that really set the stage for everything that I built and every interaction that I had in the context in which I work around women's health and fertility and birthing and all of those things. It's like how, and even in small pieces, how do we deliver that kind of love and caring to them? Because that changes what kind of mother they are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is why we have so many stories of women who don't bond with their baby or feel like they've been run over by a steamroller in labor and delivery, or feel like they didn't have autonomy in their decisions, right? I had a
Mm-hmm.
hospital birth and then three home births, and same thing. I mean, I had a great, positive, really tough hospital experience, but I knew that it would have been better no matter what if I had had different support, more, but different also. And that changed that trajectory. I was a birth worker within a year, but also I knew how I wanted people to show up for me. And I use the same word, surrender. Um, I think people hit a point in transition where they're like, I am done. I don't want to do this anymore. 100%. 100% of women don't want to do it anymore because it's
Because it
really
sucks.
hard. Yeah. And you have to surrender. You absolutely just have to allow it to happen. I think what I was told, different from you slightly, but all you have to do is follow directions,
Mm.
which is the same thing. Your midwife told you to just surrender. We're going to have this conversation. And mine said, there's going to come a point where you just need to do what I tell you to do. Just follow my
Like, just
directions.
listen.
Yeah. And I was like, I know how to do that. I do goals. I can do this. And that
Yes.
it's that same like loving language of letting go to the situation and the people around you. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just my heart. Now, you got pregnant. I love that you were like, I'm pregnant right now. And he's like, you don't even know that yet. You're not going to know. Like, if you're peeing on sticks in 4 weeks, it still might not tell you. But you knew. So you had a second child with the same person? What?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. How great. Okay. So you were
Yeah.
like, told you so when we're going to do it again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like my oldest was a little bit of a nutcase. And I was like, this child needs a sibling. He's highly and like very intelligent, not very social, a little bit awkward socially. And when he was young, and it was just very clear that this kid needed a buffer. And they could not be more different. She's 20 and
Yes.
she lives with me now, and she's just like so easygoing and soft. And he's really serious. He's in law school, like, you know totally different children. I mean,
Yes.
that's what we always think that they're going to be how you parented the first child, you can parent with the next one or the next one. And boy, that's a big fantasy. If only you
Huge.
could just learn how to do it from the first one. You're like, now I know how to parent. Cause then you have my daughter would always say, I don't, cause I had to be so stern with my son, right? He just needed like very clear, and she needs very gentle suggestions, redirections, but sometimes I transfer the tone, and she'd be like, please, mommy, I don't like the tone. The tone hurts me. And it would be like, Waverly, pick up your things. I mean, that would be the tone, like not even
Right.
anything. But their sensitivity level can be so different.
Oh my gosh, night and day. My first made me think like I could parent. I was a genius. I can do this. I should do this a dozen times. I'm so great at this. And my second one made me question that, but I was already pregnant with my third. So I like it's too late.
Too bad, so
We're
sad you're doing
yes.
it.
Okay. I want to go back. When did you become an acupuncturist? Because your son's dad was, and when did that you're jumping in on your own health. I'd love for you to dive deeper on, first of all, also MS, like has that raised its head? What does that look like? So you had this diagnosis at 18, really took over your health. What did that journey look like for you?
So I say 18. I literally don't know what year it was. It was somewhere
Mhm.
between 18 and 21 because I'm very bad with the past because I'm a very future oriented person. I never know what happened in the past about anything. But essentially, I was a competitive athlete my whole life. I trained like crazy to throwing up most days.
Mm,
And my father was so happy about that. He'd be like, "You're such a badass." Like he
yeah.
loved that. I'd be like puking and, pull over. I gotta throw up. He'd like, "Oh my God, you're so tough. You'll just work yourself." And it produced a lot of, results in terms of, performance. But it really like what my acupuncturist told me. He's like, "Look, when you were born, your body was very strong, your constitution, your organ systems, and your disease was very nascent." And he's like, but then you were maturing as you were growing up, you were in a gym training the whole time, training fully to exhaustion almost every single day of the week. And he was like, so on the outside, you looked very, he didn't say this, but what I like to say is like Instagrammable. Like at 18,
Mm,
I could not have been more fit, right? On the outside, like, just think gymnast body. But I was sleeping every time that I wasn't working out. I couldn't modulate my temperature. Like I started not being able to walk. I had a lot of cognition problems. I had vision problems. I was blind for a little bit in one eye. It's a lot of problems. And then he's like, basically what happened is, here's your disease, here's your body. He's like, while on the outside your body got stronger, your inside got weaker and more depleted, more and more depleted. And that gave the opportunity for your disease to start getting stronger. And around 17, 18, you start having early symptoms, a little bit of weakness, a little bit of vision stuff. And he's like, then about 19 or whenever,
yeah.
it flipped. And then I couldn't walk. And I walked with a cane. And he's like, our job is to figure out all the underlying issues that are keeping your body from functioning optimally and repair them as a system. And then hopefully we flip it. And then hopefully either your symptoms get a lot better, right? Or you go into remission. And, in the first 3 months, I was starting to see I think they're on backwards. Maybe that's why I'm not hearing very well. Duh. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Much more comfortable. And now it does seem like noise canceling is happening. Um, Anyways, and so that was what happened, like less episodes, less severe episodes. Within a year and a half, I wasn't using a cane anymore. And like I want to be very clear, like Chinese medicine is not a cure for MS. I just want to be so clear. People are like, how you cured your MS? I'm like, no, I still have MS. I have to work with it, right? It's a chronic condition. But for the most part, I don't have hardly any problems, maybe 5 or 10% of issues, but I never ended up taking any medication for it. I don't have any lesions in my brain. Like my doctor's always like, maybe we misdiagnosed you. And I was like, yeah, maybe. I mean, or maybe my body healed a lot of it itself. Again, going through menopause, I sort of flared back up again and had to kind of rework the situation. But so yeah, so after that first appointment with that acupuncturist, just like you became a birth worker, like right after your experience, I was like, this is the most, I was a linguistics professor at the time teaching at UT. And I was like, I am going to acupuncture school. This is so interesting. This is such a simple way, but effective. Like what they offered me was so different than what my doctor offered me. And it was exactly how he said it was. Over time, this is going to start to improve, and then this is going to improve, and then this, and then it did exactly that. And so in acupuncture school, what I realized was like, oh my gosh, the menstrual cycle is this untapped trove of diagnostic information that we get a checkup, a fresh checkup every single month. And what's nice is that actually, since it doesn't happen every day, you can actually, it's more punctuated. So if I ask you your energy every single day, you're like, oh, sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. But since we have a cycle just a few days in the month, we get this fresh checkup that we can compare to the previous month, and we can measure our progress. So we can find the problem with the menstrual cycle. We can then start to address it. And then we can check our work like long division by checking the menstrual cycle again and measuring what got better, what stayed the same, and what got worse. And then how do we modify that, the solution that we're creating for the user, of the woman.
Oh, which is true. Just you have to think about it that way. Wow, that's phenomenal. So I'm just, well, I'm proud of you too.
Thank you.
You went into this and immediately wanted to go into women's health. I mean, one partially because of your situation, and then partially, and you're a woman, but also you found all this information. Oh, it's so great. That's just so great.
Well, I think it's kind of like I'm super competitive, being a competitive athlete. Like I like to win, and I just like saw, whoa, if you know all this information about a woman's period, everything about her period, you can help her so fast and so easy.
You
And
win.
so that was you get to win, right? Like you want your patients going, yay, yay,
Yay,
you did a
you're the
great job.
best.
You're the best, right? I
But
mean,
it's
women used to
true
always say, like,
too.
yeah. I mean, so I think that that was a big driver for me, is like I want to just be where I can be the most successful and make the biggest impact. That's the real truth for me. Like, while I am competitive, I do impact and service is like my core value. And
Yeah,
every
yeah.
decision that I make is like, how do we benefit women, of all kinds across the planet?
So then you went into, you can, when I went to infertility and I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, he's like, it doesn't make sense. You shouldn't have been able to. And I'm like, you need to put the book down because sometimes it's just not in your book. So that's a
Yes.
kind of a side note because you were told the same thing. And yeah, part of it's like challenge accepted, but the other part is that it doesn't make sense. A lot of all of this infertility and reproduction, and it just doesn't necessarily make sense when you're
Hmm.
looking through the book at all of the like the way it's supposed to be. So I love that you got pregnant when they said absolutely not. Um, you went into reproductive acupuncture though. I'm reading your notes. You were the
Yeah.
first board certified reproductive acupuncturist in North America. So that's like a huge shout out. That's a segue from like looking at menstrual periods and stuff. Obviously, that would be a segue into that. So dive into that.
Well, the truth is that in order to, reproductive acupuncture isn't only for fertility, it's anything related to reproductive medicine, right? Male factor, hormones, PCOS, endometriosis. Because the truth is, if you want to improve somebody's fertility, you actually have to fix all those problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? If they have PCOS, we've got to fix the insulin resistance, right? It just makes you have an irregular, there's too many factors that work against, I put that in the category. Like people say, well, my underlying issue why I'm not getting pregnant is PCOS. I'm like, no, here's infertility, then underneath that is PCOS, then underneath that is insulin resistance, and underneath that is your diet, and underneath that is how you digest, right? And so you keep going until you find, because often the real underlying issue is actually something so easily modifiable. We just need to be able to identify it and tell you it is. So many women, whether they're working on their periods or their fertility, will say, I'm doing everything and it's not working. And I was like, that's actually the problem. Doing
Oh,
everything is a big shitstorm of like, well, I'm taking Geritol and I'm taking this supplement that somebody on TikTok said to do, and I'm standing on my head and I'm drinking pomegranate juice. Well, pomegranate juice, I think that was actually started by the pomegranate juice people, maybe, because there's no data. There's no data. Every infertile woman is drinking pomegranate juice. It has 137 grams of sugar per cup.
oh my gosh, it's ridiculous.
And I'm like, so it is a strong antioxidant. eat a few pomegranate seeds with the seeds so you get some fiber and some protein, fiber, and fat with it. But more importantly, drink a glass of green tea and you could have a Snickers and you could still save 120 grams of sugar,
That
right?
is nuts. That's nuts. Yes.
Right. And so we want to look at, so what I was mostly interested in is like, the relationship, like the use of the menstrual cycle as a diagnostic, like a predictor of fertility outcomes.
Mm.
And it turned out that we were able to build a model that's very accurate for predicting people's likelihood of getting pregnant naturally by identifying the subclinical factors and then ranking how severe they are in terms of how much that's going to impact a person's ability to get pregnant. And then they get a score, we call it the conceivable score. And on a 1 to 100, I thought they'd have to get to 80 to flip the switch on the fertility, but they just had to get to 60. So even though we talk a lot about an ideal state for optimal fertility, looks like your body only needs you to be about 60% of the way to ideal. There are some things that, like clotting in your menstrual blood, make it very hard to get pregnant. It simply just jams up the lining. Like if there's a lot of clotting in your blood, there's clotting in the lining. And if the fertilized embryo is trying to find a place, and you got a bunch of clots in there, that blood is dead and it really impacts like surface area and optimal implantation. So it just, to me, I'm a Virgo and I love order and structure, and just the menstrual cycle is very structured, even though it feels very chaotic. And, I got really serious about talking, like really trying to stop people from talking about menstrual cycle as a curse.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
like to talk about it as an instrument of unfair advantage, right? Because it is the way that you can understand and repair almost all of your health problems if you look at your period and a few other things.
You ended up attending hundreds of births as an acupuncturist. And I can't even tell you, as a doula, how many women have asked if we have someone who will do that. And we, not during birth, not during labor and delivery. Um, you helped induction and
Thousands.
yeah. And we have someone here in Reno who will do acupuncture if someone's like at or around the due date.
Hmm.
And then you train acupuncturists for labor and delivery. So you really you cornered the market in a really positive way in reproductive health, and then you built a village massively around this.
Because it's going to take a village to fix these problems. In fact, I'm going to do some shameless promoting here. So I'm
I love
starting
it.
a movement. I'm
Yes.
starting a movement as of yesterday. So it's kind of new, but it's been circling in my brain. So wherever you live and whatever your politics are, I'm not going to talk about that because it's extremely, sensitive. But I will say that given the political situation in our country right now and globally, women's access to power, access to healthcare, access to safe labor and delivery, and all these things, access to reproductive rights are really diminishing. They're actually being eviscerated. And historically, I think women were slightly more aligned, right? We were kind of still in the sisterhood. And now, with what's going on politically, I see so much divisiveness. And I see on social media, especially women being really ugly to each other from both sides. I'm not going to point any fingers
Mhm.
at anybody. And I was like, look, women's health and rights are really in trouble. We must come together because the men, they're not incentivized to help us, right? They don't. We have a hand. I'm not saying all men, and I'm not saying that men are women haters or anything. They're just, their priorities are not our rights. There are a few, but not too many. The only people who care about our rights as much as we do is us. But right now, our voter base is completely divided because of politics. And what I'm calling for is people start using the hashtag I stand with her. And what that simply means is like we don't have to agree on almost anything. I don't care about your immigration status, if you have a MAGA hat. I don't care what your job is, what your religion is, where you live, how rich or poor you are. What I know for sure is that women are the future of our species and that women are the shepherds of our children. And if we don't take care of them, we're going to have some real problems. And all of us who have daughters, it's going to really be a problem for our daughters. And if we care about any of that, we have got to find a way to say, like, I might not even like one thing about you, but you're my sister as a woman, and I will stand with you. Because if we don't, we're going to be in a really shitty place and we're going to really regret it. And I think there is a way to do it. I think there is a way to come together again, sometimes we're not going to agree. Like, the right and the left in the US are very divided around abortion rights and things like that. But there are many things that we can come together around. And so I think that's going to be really important for us.
So it's I stand with her.
Yep.
Excellent.
And here,
Well,
and
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and here's the practice. This is all you have to do is every time you see a woman, you just think to yourself, I'm with her, and I'm with her, and I'm with her. And even I had this situation the other day where I was in my parking lot at my condo picking up my little tiny 4-pound chihuahua. And this car came around kind of fast. And I was like sweeping up and I just went like this really quick. No bad face or anything. I was like, hey, hold on for just a second. I got this little chihuahua and she honks like really nasty, like, and what I wanted to do is what you can imagine what I wanted to do was, you know, but then I remembered what I'm trying to do here. And I was like, nope, I don't like that behavior. That feels really rude and ugly. And I don't know what kind of day you had, but no matter what, I'm still going to stand with you. It feels really powerful, actually, to just put it aside and be your higher self. Like, really align with if that's important to you. Not everybody's going to think it's as important as I am, but to me, afterwards, I was really happy. I was like, that felt a lot better than this. You know what I mean? Then like,
Right.
go to hell, whatever, which is what was my impulse was because, it just felt, I feel like there's a lot of aggression all around
Mhm.
and people are honking more, flipping off more. And I think I don't like that. So,
No, I don't
you know,
either. And I don't think it makes any difference if you feel politically or religiously or anything different than I do. That really isn't, that becomes a non-issue if you're standing for the right thing. And one thing that there are lots of things we can agree on. Like there's a lot less money and research for women's health than men's. If a man can't get a hard on, we got a pill. Like
in
heaven
5 seconds.
forbid, right? Like heaven forbid there should be, and I'm not saying that that's not an issue and he shouldn't have a pill, but you mentioned menopause, which I am post menopause. And if I go in with any complaint, I'm told to lube more. There is no understanding in women's health. There's less compassion and empathy, but the, just talk about division in women and men's health, the money that goes to it, the research the amount of practitioners that know how to help, whether they're female or male, like that is where we should be standing together. The conveyor belt at the grocery store and not being embarrassed that there's tampons on it because every woman that you see either will or has needed them. Like, why is there
Yes.
so much division? We're all in the same boat here, regardless of what we think. So I love that. I want to segue into your website. It's called Conceivable, and I'm a Princess Bride geek, and so the word inconceivable comes up all the time for Princess Bride. I was like, oh, I love this. This is conceivable. And I wanted to point out, not knowing any much about you beforehand, your list of supplements. I'm like, oh, postmenopause. I'm on all of these.
Yeah, you can
So,
make a pack.
right? I mean,
It's so
like,
much cheaper.
okay,
It's
so
like
I'll look at that, but
it's hella high quality. Yeah,
right,
I'll talk
which
about
is
all that.
important.
So
Yes, jump in with that.
it's a good segue because you're like, we across the whole journey, we have work to do for women's health, and
Yes.
we're going to do that work at Conceivable. So it's not an app. It's not, I mean, we do have a website, conceivable.com, but what we're setting out to do is to build the first operating system for women's health. So essentially, what that means is that you have one unified AI, which is can do and knows everything. And then you have experiences from girls before they have their first period all the way through postmenopause. And you can get unique interactions and unique experiences as you move through your reproductive journey, and you get a virtual care team. So you get Kai, that's Kirsten AI, that's me. So you get me doing the diagnosing, and we can't say diagnosing because the FDA, but assessing and identifying the underlying issues, explaining them to her, giving her score, explaining like what are the things that we're going to start with to start to repair this. You get a therapist to help you cope with the emotional support and the stress and anxiety, because even just stress alone, we know has a negative impact on hormone health and especially on the ovaries. So instead of waiting every week to go to your therapist, I want you in there every day for 10 minutes, and you can just use voice and talk to her and just be like, wow, my husband is such a jerk. Like he's being so that he won't mow the lawn. Whatever thing is in your craw, holding on to that causes stagnation. It makes you use more adrenaline. It pushes you into flight or fright. So I wanted to build tools that would just be right there in her hands. So no matter what she was doing, I used to really have an aversion to supplements because I felt like people would take supplements instead of changing their behavior.
Hmm.
And the reality is that now we're able to personalize supplements. Like we used to have a full line of clinical grade supplements because anything you get on Amazon for the most part is garbage. Like throw it away, throw it all away, like so low quality. And so we built a line of super high quality stuff, but it was really expensive, even on a lower margin for us. High quality stuff cost a lot. And we ended up finding a manufacturer who had a much bigger reach than us and was able to, either you can do a quiz, you can manually pick your packs, or you can have the app after you do your consultation tell you what supplements up to 8. I would call them clinical grade supplements, personalized to you, then delivered in 30 individual packs for the month.
Oh,
So no more
wow.
bottles, no plastic. It's very environmentally friendly. You're not getting any BPAs. It pack has your name on it. You just tear off the top, take your pills for the day, and you're done. And what's so nice about it is that then the next month, right, if anything's changed, your pack may change. So
Okay.
as if we're trying to solve something, like say you have anemia, but now you have 4 days of bleeding, soaking a tampon or a pad every 4 hours, you don't need iron anymore. You already have
Mhm.
probably plenty in your prenatal or whatever. And that's a way to really, like for me, the goal is like, I know what I want them to do and I know what will get the result, but I need to make it so stupidly easy for them. So the
Oh,
same the
yeah.
same thing with it. I don't want you to have to buy 8 supplements and figure them out and get the dose and what's a good brand. No, I'm just going to do it all for you and make it extremely affordable. So one of our supplements before, like we had a really still do really high quality vitamin E was $71. Now the whole pack for the month is 70 to $75.
Wow. Wow,
And we
that's
have a
huge.
yeah, so you can get like I used to take a lot of supplements and now I'm just doing the packs too because I don't get a personalized one because I just know what I need. But
Yeah.
you can just go in and find them, you know. That website's about to change any day now. So
Oh, good. Okay.
uh and so then what'll happen is, the the technology will follow you. So ideally, moms will give their daughters this around age 7. We know some girls are starting their periods as early as 9. During that time, we're gonna, in a really fun way, educate them about periods and hormones and sex, and in a very age appropriate way. But in Texas, sex ed is abstinence. We can't just say like, hey, the thing you want to do more than anything, just never do it and don't ever talk about it. We're just the black book. If you need something, figure it out from Google, right? We don't want that. We want to curate safe and appropriate so that I feel like how do we empower women to be their most liberated and empowered self? Well, they have to understand how their body works
Mhm.
and they have to at least have some basic knowledge about sex and how to be safe around sex and things to protect them as teenagers. All of that will be built into it, but it'll follow her. So every time she goes to the doctor, she's going to upload whatever results from the doctor. Every time she's stressed out, she's going to talk to the therapist. And so fast forward, maybe she started when she was 7 and she's 27 now and she wants to get pregnant and she's talking to the emotional support or she's talking to Kai and she's like, I'm just worried I want to get pregnant, but I'm worried I'm going to have a hard time, blah blah blah. And then Kai is going to be like, well, you got your period when you were 12, which is the perfect starting point. Less earlier is problem, later is a problem. And then once your period came, you had a rough few months, but just imagine like someone knowing you, like
Yeah.
a clinician, a team of people knowing your whole history and being able to integrate all of the pieces with whatever's happening right now. And sort of that's the goal, to basically be with her until she dies, from age 7 until she dies.
Wow. You're doing the Kirsten AI, and how has this shifted your acupuncture practice?
Well, I closed it. So it was mostly a hypothesis. I read a study in 2015 or 16 that said less than 3% of couples can afford fertility treatments.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I cried when I read that
Yeah.
because I was like, we had a very high touch, very like Four Seasons like experience at the clinic. And it was, really fun for us and the patients, but, very cost prohibitive. But even if we lowered the price to like the lowest that we could kind of like barely make any money, it's still too cost, like even $75 a week is still cost prohibitive for most people, especially if you add herbs onto that. And so Um, I lost our train of thought there for just a second. That's my menopause mind.
Oh
Remind
yeah.
me the question so I can get myself
Oh,
back on track.
so how did the Conceivable and the app
Oh
change
yeah,
your
the clinic.
practice? Yeah.
Yeah, so we built a first version. So I was like, I'm going to try and build technology to mimic what I do in the clinic minus acupuncture. And I was not hopeful. I did not think that it was going to be effective. It was before the AI was built into it, so it was like an inferior product anyways. And then after we finished the regression analysis after, so 4 months people came to the clinic, saw me twice a week for acupuncture, took herbs. 4 months they used the app, no human interaction. And then the data scientist came to my office and I was like, he looked kind of sheepish and I was like, oh man, it didn't work. And he goes, oh, it worked. And I said, did she, Kai, that's my I was like, did she get close to me? And he said no. And I was like, oh man, all I wanted was her to be 50% as good as me. If she was 50% as good as me, I figured it was still worth $15 a month, you know? And he goes, no, she didn't get close to you. And I was like, oh man. And he goes, no, but you got close to her. She beat you by 6%.
Oh wow.
And I was like,
Wow.
that no acupuncture, no human interaction. And me, I'm pretty good at what I do.
Yeah.
Here, here's why.
Yeah.
It first of all, in Chinese medicine, I've said this a lot of times recently. In Chinese medicine, they have a great statement. They say the good doctor treats the patient, the great doctor treats society, but the master will make herself obsolete.
Mm.
And when I looked at the study, I was like, well, my ego is bruised that the app beat me, but at the same time, I did the statement of fact, like I've made myself obsolete. And I realized at that time for me, it felt unethical to keep my clinic open. If
Wow.
for $15 a month, they can get slightly better outcomes without me.
Mhm.
I can't charge them what I was charging them. I'll feel like such a phony baloney. You know what I mean? Like I know that the interpersonal, there is an unquantifiable value to that, but also a therapist could do that as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and what it turned out to be is that the acupuncture, I think my hypothesis is that while acupuncture is extremely effective, if you're getting acupuncture once a week, the effects of acupuncture last about 2 days. So and when people would come to the clinic, I would say, okay, well, the other thing, we really need to make sure to take your herbs and, we really need to build more blood. Your lining is so thin, you only have 1 day of menstrual bleeding. So make sure to eat lots of iron-rich foods, more B12 stuff, and like, lots of things with lots of iron in it. And I'd maybe give them a sticky sheet with like some greens and some beans and more grass-fed beef. And they go, okay. And then sometimes they would and sometimes they don't. But in the app, I'm just telling her everything. This is what you're going to do. You're going to talk to me for 15 minutes every single day. Here's your menus for this week of your period, and here's why. These menus are designed to, the correct protein, fiber, in fact, the correct nutrients, and then using Chinese medicine food therapy to use food to make blood, to dry blood, to build, all those kind of things we can do in Chinese medicine. And then she's tracking all of those things. She gets a data analyst as part of her care team. So anytime she's curious, she's putting all this information. We have a wearable and that's tracking data too. So instead of just having a whole bunch of tracked data, which I think is completely useless, you talk to your data scientist and you're like, so tell me what all this means. And then she's like, she's like, okay, well, the first problem is your energy is still a 5 out of 10. If we
Mhm.
don't have energy, the follicle can't mature, right? It has more mitochondria than any other cell tissue in the body because it has to mature. I mean, it has to come together and then start dividing and replicating like crazy. And that requires a lot of energy. So it goes back and says, your energy is still really low. Let's figure out why. You're not really following your menus. What's going on with that? Do I need to make different kinds of menu? Is it too hard? Do you not have time? Do we need to? So the interventions then are not supplements or anything. Her intervention might be making food prepping easier,
Right.
right? If the only problem that's affecting her energy level is the quality of food that she's eating, and she's eating that because she actually doesn't know how to cook, then the intervention has to be we have to start over and we have to start really simple recipes and do more bulk batching so she has to cook less. So the interventions often can seem very simple, like if a woman doesn't have cervical discharge and she tells us that she doesn't drink much water, the intervention is to get her to drink more water. Now, sometimes they are not thirsty. And that's actually a clinical. So when she's asking, tell me about, your hydration. I notice that you're still only drinking like one glass of water. Is that because you're forgetting a behavioral intervention or you're not thirsty, a clinical intervention? Right? Because in Chinese medicine, not thirst tells us there's some digestive issues. People who aren't thirsty will have swollen tongues. The app analyzes your tongue. So you stick out your tongue and it takes a picture of it. And then it says, oh, you have a swollen tongue. It's slightly purple. This is what it means. And then we track even the tongue changes over time.
Holy cow. So there's so many details on a daily basis.
Yes. And that's part of the problem actually. So, we've been live for about 3 months and we have a bunch of users but because it's an experience that no one has ever had inside of a piece of technology, like
Yeah.
around health, people just like put their period in, right? And then they don't come back for a whole month. They're like, no, 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 no. You got to interact with it. The more you interact with it, the better she gets, the smarter your care team gets, the more data in actually learns about you and from you and starts making better hypothesis and is better able to like pivot and change when things aren't improving.
My gosh, Kirsten, this is amazing. So you stopped your practice, you don't do it anymore, and now you've transitioned to supporting people. Your whole day must look completely different than it did. I mean, like your whole life looks different. Your stress is lower,
Well, my stress is a lot higher because,
is it?
we're building our own language model.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to break everything. We're going to break every convention that anyone has ever experienced on behalf of all women. Like, I'm just like, I went from making a ton of money being an acupuncturist to like taking a very small salary while I was building this algorithm over the last 7 years. So I'm not afraid of being poor. I'm not afraid of being people upset with me. The only thing that I'm afraid of is not making the impact that's there to be
Mm.
made. Right? That would be a failure for me if we couldn't build technology that was so beautiful and easy to use that the women can just be like, "Oh my God, this is so easy and I'm getting results so fast." Because if they really do it the way we want them to, in 90 days they will have a pretty solid transformation.
You mentioned that there's a quiz online. So all of your links are in the show notes. People can find them, the website. You mentioned the website's going to change, but the URL will be the same.
Of course,
And so
we're just getting a little glow up. That's all.
I love the glow up. And then they can come on here, take tests, figure things out, download the app, all of the things so women can start tracking all of their information in this.
Yeah, and so you will download the app in the App Store. The Android version will be out pretty shortly. Um, if you if you just want to take supplements, you can just go to the website.
Mhm.
Uh, you can order a Halo ring. That's our wearable. It's pretty cool. It's half the price of the Aura ring. It
Mm,
accurately tracks temperature, which I wasn't able to find a wearable that accurately tracks temperature. And because temperature is really important for our scoring system, it really tells you a lot about your fertility. And it's the first non-invasive glucose monitor. So it's a ring that measures your glucose
yep.
without needles. So it
That's
uses light.
nuts.
So it's not, to be clear, it's really like a monitor. It's not FDA cleared for glucose monitoring. So this wouldn't be appropriate if you had diabetes. You would never use this to sort of decide how much insulin to take. All it does is it tells you is your glucose high, normal, or low, which is really important. I interviewed 16,000 women last year, and one of the questions I ask is, what's your glucose status? Like, do you have high glucose, normal, or low? About 10% knew.
Yeah.
Some had hypotheses, but because the higher your blood sugar, the lower your fertility and the worse your period will be. It just really disrupts every part of reproduction. It's so incredibly inflammatory. And so I was like, well, I need to know what that is. And also, the ring does heart rate variability. But what's coming very soon, and I am so excited about, is because always the ring's like $250 and not everybody can afford that. So I'm always like, well, what if they can't afford a ring? How do we make it affordable for everyone? And so what we're building, and it's spending a bunch of money on it, is this face scan technology. So in the morning, you can just hold your phone up to you. You'll just hit it, and then it'll be like you can either talk to it and you could just tell her an update like, oh, I got my period and it was 3 days long, blah, 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 blah. But in the time that you're doing that update, it's like doop, 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 doop. And it'll be able to tell you your temperature, your heart rate variability, your VO2 max, which is a stress metric, um, your body composition. So not only weight, but like body composition, so fat ratio and things like that. Um, and temperature. Some people will still want to use a ring because they don't even want to do the face scan, right? They're just like, I just want it just taken and stuck in the thing. And we wanted to have something available that, because like, I think that the Aura ring is very sexy, like brand story and everything, but I have not been able to get it to give me an accurate enough temperature read for me to feel comfortable about it. So we wanted to have an alternative that we feel like we're going to trust that data to be as close as possible.
So impressed. I love that people can reach out to you. This is virtual, so they don't need to live in Texas. That was one of the questions
Mm-mm.
I asked you beforehand. Like anybody can do this.
On the
Um,
planet, not even in the US.
yeah, right. Kirsten, thank you so much for sharing your story and everything that you're doing and your values. I love your
Thank
values.
you. I really appreciate it. And I just think it's an important story. It's very timely, and just anything that we can do to come together and to create opportunities for women to be the heroes of their own journey.
Hmm.
That's one thing. It's like when I was a clinician in clinic still, like people would always say, like, oh, I got knocked up by Kirsten. Or if we would see them in Target, like invariably we would always see, I mean, I had 10,000, infertile patients in my career. So invariably, every time we were at Target, we would see a former patient, and they would be talking to my kids who are like, they'd be like, Kirsten, oh my God. And then my kids would be like, oh, sweet Jesus, I know what this is. And they would come over and they're like, oh my gosh, your mom, she knocked me up, and the kids are like, they're like 5 years old. And you're like, we don't care. And, but in that scenario, it always felt like they were making me the hero. And I don't want to
Mm,
be the hero. That's not useful to them. I want, in all of healthcare, our doctors are the heroes. I want them to be the hero. I want to just be the coach on the side. I want to be like Yoda, being like, hey, check this out. Look, see, only one day of bleeding, not enough lining. Here's some things you can do. And then they do it. And as they go through that process of healing their mind, their nervous system, their digestion, their body, they go through a personal transformation that changes them. It's not like they just got pregnant. They transform underneath their own care, and that changes what kind of mother they are, which now we have a generational impact, right? We're not only helping women around fertility, we're helping them to be better mothers and hopefully helping them the way that they raise their children. We have less of these problems in future generations.
thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.